probably know by now, the VRS cutoff is already passed, so we know the full list of teams that will be participating in the second major of 2025, which is going to be the StarLadder Budapest major, taking place in Hungary between the 24th of November and the 14th of December, which is quite a long time from now. It's more than a month, around a month and a half from now. So there is a lot of time, a lot of topic to discuss, or a lot of topics to discuss, and a lot of time to do that. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Parivision and the way that they were able to, I guess, for Jame and Dastan, redeem themselves going throughout 2025 and build something unique and different with a lot of young players, a lot of players that role-wise shouldn't have really been compatible to begin with, but we're going to take a look at the way that Dastan and Jame were able to make it work, the pathing, and the way that they chose all of those players, and I will try and get and make you understand a little bit better and make you, or help you get to know those players a little bit better in case you haven't had the time to watch Parivision and you just know Jame and Dastan and you're going to be watching them at the major, so might as well get a little bit more intel on one of the most exciting teams to watch in Tier 2 Counter-Strike over the last couple of months. So without further ado, let's get right into it and yeah, see if Parivision really is a team worth watching and waiting for at the major. Alrighty, so we have a couple main things to discuss when it comes down to Parivision. So first things first, Jame and Dastan. This is where you're starting from, right? You've got the fundamentals, you've got the base of a duo of an in-game leader and a coach that have been together or were on the same team together for 7 years, started things off on the side of Vanguard in 2017 and were together up until 2024 when Dastan got removed from VP, but they went through a Vanguard, went into the promotion of Virtus Pro together, then throughout the Outsiders, and then obviously Virtus Pro once again. So you're looking at a duo like this and you're thinking, well, how did the year start for those guys? The year started in a pretty tough way. Parivision was a newly created project. It started in a tough way for Jame personally, as he got removed from Virtus Pro, he joins this team, and then you're looking at a newer project where Jame was supposed to show everyone that he can build himself up from the ground up, pretty much, that he can fight his way through Tier 2 Counter-Strike. Dastan was already in Parivision, obviously, so there's a bit of a nice reunion there. But there was a massive question when it came down to policy and the way that they were going to approach their game, right? The style, if you will, of Counter-Strike that they were going to be playing, as one of the main points of criticism towards Jame and Dastan in Virtus Pro was the fact that the Counter-Strike was getting a little bit boring, there was a lack of ideas, it was a nice dynamico, and maybe it was a little bit more forgiving to be playing like this in CSGO, but now in CS2, as the game is in general a lot more fast-paced, even though you're given more reasons to save and look after the economy, it felt like it was a little bit stagnant for Jame, didn't it? Going into Parivision, one of the main things for this lineup was, let's show, or from Jame and Dastan's perspective, let's show the world that we can play up to speed Counter-Strike. We can be up to date with the meta and actually I guess hold on to some of our identity, but play some modern Counter-Strike. And this is one of the things that that we will be looking at through Edge as well later on in this video. We're going to be talking about some of the problems and some of the really good sides of what Parivision has been doing. But one of the main ways for an in-game leader and a coach that are a little bit more experienced and have been together for a longer time. Obviously, they've won a major together, the one in Rio. They've won 4 other big trophies, and they've been a top 10 team for such a long time and played so many majors together. One of the easiest ways for you to shaken things up is to inject a lot of young blood into the body of the problem, right? So what do? Obviously, Belchanok was already in here. For those of you that don't know, Belchanok is one of those players, again, oldest guy outside of Jame on this team, by the way, but Belchanok is the type of player that is going to be your anchor, but then in the same time, one of your star players. He's anchoring 3 small bomb sides on the CT side, 3 big bomb sides, so he's not really playing a single star player position on the CT side, and on the T side, he's got some really aggressive lurking spots. He's going to be the entry sometime, but most of the time on the other side of the map, making a move in a pretty early stage, and most of the time pretty successful at it. Now, the crazy part about all of this is that if you look at the statistics from the start of 2025, regardless of him being the anchor on CT sides, he was the one to initiate the utmost amount of opening fights. Now, that has changed throughout the last 30 days to 60 days, right? You're seeing a pattern of some of the other guys taking a little bit more initiative on the CT sides, but in general, Belchanok is showing to be a really complete anchor player, which in the modern meaning of it in Counter-Strike pretty much means an anchor player that can be an aggressive anchor as well, right? You can't just sit back and hold the bomb site anymore. You need to be making moves because it's nearly impossible on a lot of the maps that you're solo anchoring to just stay there and wait for the tees to come your way and then kill 3 people, right? It's really difficult. So you need to be making moves. You need to coordinate it with your teammates. You need to have a really good aimer in those spots as well. Someone that's really reliable, really confident, and someone that can deal with pressure in important moments and has really quick decision making that's on point. So I think Beltranok has been incredibly impressive. He is the oldest standing member of this team, and the reason that his story in particular is quite interesting is the fact that prior to joining Paravision, he actually did spend a little bit of time on Aurora, Paravision again in 2023 and until obviously the second month of 2024, also known as February. But then the only project that he's been able to stick around with for a longer period of time was Nemiga, and that was between January of 2022 and September of 2023. The reason I'm saying this is because this is probably the first time we could get to see Beltranok stick for a longer period of time into a project. I say could because obviously this team in general is new, even though he's been part of the organization for around a year and a half. But I feel like this is where we're seeing the best out of Beltranok, and I think because he's been around for, let's say, 3-4 years since he joined Nemiga, but even before that, some people might remember him from Ethereal and Heart Legion if you're diehard Tier 3 Counter-Strike fans. I feel like everyone's got really massive expectations to the extent of not realizing or forgetting for a little bit that he's just 21, right? And for a 21-year-old, he's playing like a really solid and complete anchor. He's able to be the star of the team while also not being a star player. So he's kind of like a Russian Robs in a way, right? And I think this is a good comparison. Obviously, not the same micro-wise, but in terms of what he's doing for the team and the positions that he's playing, you could say that he's the Robs of Paravision. And it is really, really interesting to see his development because he's always been a really good mechanical player. And the fact that he was a star player, he was an entry, he was the guy to run in first. Now he shifted into being a bit more of a supportive guy, but he's still doing all of that. He's still pressing forward, and there is still ways for him to get implemented is really, really cool. We're going to keep it going with the next person in line. So we spoke about Beltranok a little bit. Obviously, we kind of introduced Jame and Dastan already, so we're going to focus on the rifles and then how Jame uses all of those guys. We're going to talk a little bit about Noda. Now, Noda was the second oldest member of this team outside of Jame, obviously, alongside Beltranok. Noda did arrive with Jame and Travis at the start of the year for Mamcal. He's that type of a young gun that hasn't really had the time to play higher level Counter-Strike, right? And when you look at some of the numbers, you're going to say, well, Noda statistics don't really look that impressive, right? He's averaging a 1.03. Maybe he's a support player. Maybe he's not supposed to be posting those good numbers. Well, not quite. Noda is one of those really aggressive riflers on the side of Paravision. On the CT side, he's one of the star players. I think one of the main things when this team was getting assembled towards the start of the year was the fact that some time needed to pass in order for maybe Paravision to see that Noda wasn't quite ready to be the sole star of this team. So on Amcal, he was a showstopper. On Rush B, he was a showstopper. He's always been a star player. But then you go into a Paravision where you're playing with Jame, which we obviously know comes in with some complications at times, but I'm not going to go down that path because I actually feel like he's been given a lot of space and he's been trying to make a lot of those players comfortable in Paravision. But I think for Noda, it might have been a little bit too early, and I think it is still too early to be that #1 star, but he's definitely the one that Paravision are looking at and saying, we are going to preserve him a little bit, right? We're not going to give him 27, 28% of the opening fights on T sides. We're not going to make him go first all the time. On CT side, when there's issues, he's not necessarily going to be the one that we're throwing at the fire, right? Obviously, you've got Jame, who's a really good CT side opener as well when it comes down to opening fights, interestingly enough, lately. But there's a lot of initiative pieces around Noda, and I feel like at the start of the year that wasn't necessarily the case. Noda was the one that you're looking at when you're thinking about entry. Maybe Beltranok is there to help, but Noda was supposed to be the big carry of this team at the start of the year. But then some time passes and he's struggling with consistency. The numbers are not great over the board, and then they decide that his potential is still big enough to keep him around and try and make him a little bit more comfortable within the team. But how do you take some of that pressure off of the shoulders of a young player that feels like they are supposed to do it all? Well, you bring in another guy that could be the star of the team. And that's where they bring in Zielo. Now, for those of you that don't know who Zielo is, or Casello, or it doesn't really matter how you want to pronounce his nickname, he's a 19-year-old Russian player. That was the second star to Tenir, that same Tenir that's now on Team Spirit, that was on Heroic, that's probably one of the best riflers in the world already, and is just his first year in Tier 1 Counter-Strike. He was the second star to Tenir on that Gun 5 lineup, and as much as Tenir was the, I guess, star of the show, the interesting thing is Zielo actually had more of the star positions on Gun 5. Obviously, there are different players, but Zielo's that type of a guy that you're going to put in centric spots. He's going to be really vocal. He's going to be given a lot of ideas. So there is a lot of similarities between him and Tenir, to the extent of both of them being involved with the game or wanting to be involved in the game. The big difference is that Zielo could be a pure star player, right? You can just put him as your connector player on Mirage, or your short player. You can put him as your mid player on Ancient. You can put him as your outside player on Nuke. You can just put him everywhere where he needs to fight and speak a lot, and he's going to do one hell of a job at it, right? And the addition of Zielo, which happens around June this year, adds even more depth to what the side of Paravision is doing in terms of rifles, right? And you might be sitting from the outside and saying, well, this is the third guy that you said was an entry and a star player, right? Belchanok used to be one, Noda's one, Zielo's one. What is going on? Now, what is going on is that Jame and Dastan, I feel like, decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to get the best talent out of all over the place, and we're going to make them work in a system, and we're going to find a way to make everyone comfortable and get the best out of everybody, which is a really tough order. We can see how this is working out for the Falcons. It's not quite working out, is it? But I think the addition of Zielo, if anything, added with the fact that it takes a little bit of the pressure off of the shoulders of Noda. And by that point, by the way, it was already known that Belchanok is sticking to just being an anchor player, right? He was never going to be moved around. So it really helps when you have a star player with aggressive tendencies. That's an anchor as well, because you can have Zielo and Noda obviously come in and take all the star spots. And then there's the question that's being left, but what is going on with the other anchor positions? Who's going to be the guy to take more sacrifices? Because Zielo had some maps on which he was anchoring, right? He was the B anchor on Ancient, for example, initially when he joined the team. And then they bring in AW, who's another teenager from the Russian scene, coming out of Amkel, DMS previously for 2 years. A player that you could probably compare, if you wanted to just a really sharp rifle that you can put as an anchor, but you can put as an entry as well. But he's always good for rotations. I know what I'm saying. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, because it kind of feels like I've told you that they've picked up the same players. But the main difference between Noda, for example, and Belchanok, and now Zielo and AW, who are the most recent additions to that Paravision lineup, is the fact that both AW and Zielo are incredibly vocal guys. And you're bringing in someone like AW, who, again, is a rifler with a lot of aggressive tendencies. But he is a rifler with a lot of aggressive tendencies in a more sacrificial way. He's going to be the guy that you can send in first. He's going to be the guy that's going to be down to even throw in some utility and drop guns if needed. So he's a soldier, right? You're bringing in AW, you're bringing in a soldier to the mix. He was on his previous team on Amco and DMS, involved in a lot of the mid-rounding. He had a lot of vocal and a lot of positions that were in the middle of the map, right? In the eye of the storm, so to speak. Cave on Ancient was a good example, and the reason I'm referring back to Ancient is because now they've switched it up, right? Zielo was the B anchor, AW was the Cave player. Now they've switched it, and AW is slotted into just being the definition of a support player. Again, another rifle that used to have aggressive tendencies, and that is doing a lot right now for understanding how the team should function. And this is a really cool thing that I feel like they've done on Paravision. The fact that not only you have Jame, who's obviously going to be talking a lot, not only you have Zielo, who's a star player that's going to be really vocal and really loud, but now you have an anchor guy that knows how to be an aggressive anchor as well, but speaks a lot too. And I know the word aggression is probably the most overused one since the start of this, but I feel like this is where the balance comes in. A playstyle that was often criticized for being too static, too boring, too one-dimensional, is now strengthened up by 4 rifles that know how to press W and go and fight. And this is something that I think Jame himself complements sometimes, right? You're looking at the CT sides, and as we pointed out, Belchanok, still one of the most aggressive ones. This is last 3 months, obviously. Still one of the most aggressive ones. AW slotting into being a support player. Zelo still getting a little bit of freedom, but not as much as Belchanok and Noda. And then you've got Jame on CT sides going for 23.8% of the attempts with above a 60 or above a 70% success rate, which is incredibly impressive. So you're seeing a lot of depth when it comes down to the way that they can use some of those players on the CT side, right? You can push in and have some aggressive plays in towards the extremities with Belchanok leading the charge. You can have Noda and Zelo towards the mid-centric part of the map as well with the rifles. And then you can have Jame taking the initiative with Yop. Now, obviously, the moment that you shift onto the T side, things are not quite the same. And this is where things get a little bit more problematic when it comes down to opening fights. So the main difference between Paravision on the T side and Paravision on the CT side feels like there's a lot more creativity and there's a lot more initiative being taken in a good way on CT sides. T sides are a little bit bleak. There's something called one-dimensional counterstrike that you see a lot out of them, but at least in terms of what they're trying to do, it's not really the case, right? At least in terms of what they're trying to do, you can see that they've got 3 rifles that are coming in hot to try and open up bomb size most of the time, being Belchanok, Zelo, and Noda. So that speaks to a little bit of depth. And it's not like Jame is going for below 12 or 10% opening attempts with the OP. He's still trying to do something. Success rate isn't great, but those are the issues that we're going to talk about when it comes down to the T side in just a little bit. So the reason I'm telling you guys about all of this when it comes down to the side of Paravision is because they were just able to make their way into the major. Paravision has been one of the most consistent teams in Tier 2 Counter-Strike over the course of the last 6 months, maybe 10 months even, maybe since the start of the year, but definitely since the start of this season. At a certain point, earlier on, that's between, and I'm going to look at the precise date so I'm not misleading you with all of that, but at a certain point between the 16th of July and the 9th of September, Paravision had won 17 out of 20 best of threes. They were able to win a couple online events. They were able to win the Majestic LAN Delano, which obviously booked their spot into the major. And I feel like regardless of their lackluster performance in Star Series, that was one of the first LANs, well, actually the first big international LAN that they played with this lineup. They were able to win Challenger League. They played some really good Counter-Strike online. I think this is one of the teams that show that they can work their way up and grind it out. And this is one of the aspects that a lot of people were ignoring. Jame came into Tier 2 Counter-Strike and in 10 months has already played more maps than he had in any year previously in his career before, right? And that counts for both him and Dastan. Their previous highest score was 2019, when they had 306 maps. Now, so far, I'm recording this video on the 8th of October 2025. They've played 307 maps already. And this is absolutely crazy. This is showing the willingness to grind. This is showing the willingness to go forward. And I think it is a story that is deserving of a little bit of respect, because what Paravision is doing right now really does resemble what Jame and Dastan were able to do with Avanger a couple of years ago. But now it's really exciting because he's got so much firepower, so many exciting pieces on this team, and it just looks really, really cool to see. And we're talking about this game against Bad Boom. Obviously, that was a Bad Boom that was playing good Counter-Strike as well lately with the latest. Obviously, Boomich being the in-game leader, but the latest and Arfrost is the newest additions, doing a pretty decent job. And it all came down to 5 maps. Now, we're going to use one of those 5 maps from this grand final just to bring a little bit of life to some of the things that I was saying to you about how good the CT sides have been and how different the CT sides have been, and then how lackluster some of the T sides have been. Now, this is the main issue when it comes down to Paravision, because I know I've been throwing in a lot of superlatives their way. I'm going to give you a little bit of a downside now to what Jame and Paravision have been doing and some of the issues that they've been experiencing on T side. So we're looking at buy rounds only. We're looking at only the rounds in which they've got the AKs. It doesn't really matter if it's an anti-eco, if the other team has a buy, whatever. We're talking about them being on AKs, so we see the approach. So Ancient is a great example of it. And obviously we're going to be using Edge for this one. Shout out to Edge and to Anders. But we're going to be taking a look at one map. This one map is the most recent one they've played on Ancient. It is against Bad Boom. It is at the final of LAN Dalan. And it's the perfect example of what that Ancient from the side of Paravision most of the time looks like. So that's why I've decided to take a look at it. So You're looking at a pretty default stance. Obviously, they're playing an anti-eco. You spread around. Belchanok's holding A, Notice holding middle, and then you've got a couple guys methodically clearing that B-bomb side with utility. There's a stack on the other side. The CTs try and get ahead of the curve, reaggress a little bit. They deal with the pistols. It's nice and easy. Then you go into the next one. It's a buy round, and now you're going to start seeing a little bit of different variations. But the one thing that you can focus on primarily is try and notice how many of these rounds are going to end on the B bomb side. Now, in this one, there is actually a little bit of a curveball to it because Belchanok does re-clear A main and does kill Siren. So that baits a little bit of rotation, and you can fall back and walk onto the B bomb side. And in the end of the day, this is a round that they win because there was no time for Boomers to defuse the bomb. Then you go into the next round. It's another buy for both the sides. You see them try and fight middle this time around. And again, going up shelf, another variation of a B finish. It goes into the B bomb side. This one they lose. You go into round number 6. And again, mid utility, you take lane. Belchanok re-clears A main to some extent. He walks out, but still, the player with the bomb is going on B. Then you go to round number 8. Mid utility, Molotovs, close molly, molly jungle, you put a little bit of pressure. This time you're not even re-clearing A main, and that's why you can see Siren starting to take that space early on, because Bedboom is starting to feel like there's heavy leaning coming in from the D side and towards the B bomb side, and they would be right to assume so, but they still lose the round, regardless of the fact that they had the lean, regardless of the fact that they had the stack. Paravision just powered through and win the round. Then you're going into round number 9, and those are rounds that they're winning, by the way. You can see that here on the graph below. Those are rounds that they're winning, and now you're going up against a force buy with a hero M4, 2 hero M4s in fact, and an MP9, and what is going on? It's a B round. Then you're going into round number 10. Mid utility again, default utility in towards B to try and control lane. You're not pushing them away from mini or from A main. And again, you're going into a stack on B, and again, you win the round regardless of the CTs having all the information. And then you're looking at the same thing again. Round number 12. Belchanok just goes in a little bit closer, and then he's off. And they group up, they go B once again. Now, this is a pretty extreme example because it's just one map of Ancient, and you'll have to take it on my word here, but they do that a lot. And this is one of the things that you're going to notice on Paravision T sides, which I think could be a little bit problematic at times because you're not throwing in too much depth, or you are, because you are changing small things, right? This is the one thing we should address. It's not as simple as they just go B, right? They just go B, but there is a lot of differences in the way that they approach the rounds. And still, even though there's a lot of ways that they can make you feel like you can probably be one step ahead and that they're going to switch things up, different fights that they're taking, throwing the utility on different timings, some of those T sides have been incredibly vanilla. And mind you, this is probably one of the best T sides that you will see in terms of success rate from Paravision from the last couple of weeks. Oftentimes they're struggling with getting opening kills. It feels like it's a little bit lost because most of the calls are being made out of spawn, and there isn't a lot of mid rounding. You can see there's a lot of set util, and people just know when and where they're going. So those are some of the approaches that you see out of teams that don't really have a lot of depth when it comes down to the mid rounding. Now, that could be happening for a couple of reasons, for multiple reasons actually. It could be because obviously Jame wants to get everyone on the team comfortable and on the same page, and he wants them to play structured counterstrike because obviously he does realize that he doesn't have the most experienced individuals in the world, and maybe in defaults things could be a little bit more lackluster, right? But this is one of the things that could get abused against the side of Paravision. Sometimes, for example, you noticed A main wasn't really heavily guarded in towards the left-hand side of the minimap, so oftentimes there was stacks coming in towards the B-bomb side. And against a team like Bedboom, even though I think they've been playing well, maybe you're going to be able to get away with it. Against some of the best teams in the world, you're definitely not getting away with just going into a 3-4 man stack half of the time and just running them down, right? You're definitely going to be having a tougher time. So this is one of the bad things that you can identify in their game, or bad things, one of the main concerns probably. But then you're going into the CT side, and this is where it starts getting a little bit more exciting. This is where you're going to start seeing them move around the map a little bit. So first buy round on the CT side, first buy round in the second half. It's a buy for both of the teams. You can clearly see that It's a bit of a bonus for Bedboom because they have won the pistol and the bonus one, or the anti-eco. And then the buy for parry is not really great, right? Money, not a lot of it in the reserve. You've got an MP9, you've got a FAMAS, you still have a decent amount of utility. What are they going for? Instant smoke in towards the doors, 4-man start on that B bomb side. You've got the double molly, one of them coming in towards the top of the ramp, the other one coming in towards or towards the top of banana, the other one coming in towards the ramp here, lane in towards cave to stop the T's from crossing. And you're looking at a bit of a delay. They slow it down, they wait for the molly, late flash, HE to break the smoke, they go and fight, they take the space. By that point, the T's are already in here. By that time, the T's have reacted perfectly, but in the meantime, Belchanok as well has started middle with a little bit of util, transition to donut. They've got the information, so Jame knows what's going on. He's gonna get refragged. In the end of the day, they do lose the round in a pretty convincing fashion for Bedboom. But the one thing that we're emphasizing on is not really the great counter that is coming in out of Bedboom, is the way that Paravision want to hit hard when it comes down to a first buy round, and they want to show some level of creativity on that CT side. Then you go into the second buy round. This is again one that they lose. What are we looking at? Another 3-man starting towards the B-bomb side. Jame posted with Yob. That allows Cielo to be a little bit braver in the way that he's picking up the fight in towards cave. Unfortunately, he couldn't stay here, and that donut smoke makes, Jame rotate back as Noda doesn't really have the information, and especially after how heavy the T's were playing in towards middle in the previous round, they would want to rotate a second guy there, so again, they're playing a little bit more on the back foot, but you can see that they're trying to read the situation, they're trying to read the room and move around the map, right? It's not really that stagnant. They're trying to react based off what their opponents are doing, and unfortunately, they didn't have the time, so decided to save in this one. Then you go into the next buy round, and again, you're looking at the 3-man start here. Only this time we're looking at Jame taking the initiative. Aggressive peek in towards cave. He doesn't see anything. Belchanok is just jiggling in towards A, deploys his utility. And all this time, you can see how Noda's starting a little bit more aggro in towards middle. He doesn't see anything again. Then they get smoked off. What is the constant or the instant reaction here? Zielo's trying to go for a fight. Again, trying to make a move based on this piece of information being taken away from them. He does get taken down. He does miss the shots against Magno and gets shut down from Boomage. And again, they were looking towards red almost instantaneously, trying to rotate around. Jame is taking the initiative, pushing down the ramp. And you're looking at some of those CT side rounds and thinking, well, this does not look like boring Counter-Strike. It looks like they're trying to coordinate the information. They're trying to cheat their way into some gambles at the start of some rounds, but then play reactive Counter-Strike is not just putting all of our eggs into one basket and not being able to do anything about it. There's constant movement and communication around the map when it comes down to Pyrovision right now. And this is one of the things that I find exciting about this team, is the fact that you've definitely seen an upgrade in the policy of Jame and Dastan when it comes down to playing the game. And I think they've got the pieces to do so, because now they've got so many reliable individuals and so many people that are willing to take the space and be the soldiers for the team, that it opens up a whole lot of possibilities. But yeah, this is in general why I think Paravision is one of the teams that you guys should be looking into, why I think they should be one of the teams on your radar. Definitely a team that is worth following, and definitely a team that is pretty exciting going into the major. Now, do I think they will be able to do a whole lot there? I'm not sure I can put my money on it, because again, as I told you, I think some of the T sides have been a bit too lackluster, and I think the team in general is incredibly young. But even the fact that they've made it into the major, for me, is impressive enough. And do I believe that they can make it past stage 1? Hell yeah, I believe they can make it past stage 1. There's a lot of teams that I put my money for Paravision to beat. So I think Paravision is one of the teams that you should probably even consider, even though we're going to have those conversations later on, for your pick'ems, for a team to make it through. Now, maybe not in a 3-0 fashion, but I think they could be one of the interesting dark horses, and especially with some of the good form that has been hit by some of the individuals lately. We were talking about Cielo, and the way that he's supposed to be one of the stars of the team. Well, he was the one to post the 139 rating over 11 maps at the LAN tournament to pretty much push them in towards that major. So there's been a lot of positives about Jame and Dastan. There's been a lot of positives about the side of Paravision. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. For me, one of the teams that is definitely worth taking or keeping an eye on. Hopefully is the same for you. And of course, if you want us to keep on making videos like these on SkinClub, shout out SkinClub for allowing me to do all of that content, by the way. Of course, make sure you leave us a comment either on YouTube, or you can tag me or SkinClub on Twitter or messages, and let us know which team you want us to do next with that type of a team profile, so to speak, where we go through throughout all the players, and then we go through some of the tendencies that they have on both the T and the CT sides, and we talk about the things that they do well, the things that they don't do well, and in general, what our expectations of them should be. But with that being said, that's going to be everything for this video. Thank you very much for being over. As I said, once again, shout out SkinClub, because we just announced our new ambassadormanship. That's a really weird word to say. But yeah, pretty much there's going to be a lot more content coming out of me for the next couple of months. There's going to be a lot of articles, a lot of videos, some interviews. So stay tuned for all of that. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Stay safe.